Most people quit intermittent fasting in the first week, and it's almost never because their body failed them. They quit because nobody warned them what the first few days would actually feel like inside. You were told fasting flips a switch, that skipping meals instantly forces your body into fat-burning mode. That idea sounds perfect because it promises results without patience, without discomfort, without any real waiting. But your body isn't a machine you can reprogram with a single missed breakfast or lunch. It's a living system shaped by years of eating patterns, stress, sleep, and quiet emotional habits. For years, your body has leaned on glucose, the fast and familiar fuel from every single meal. Every time you eat, insulin rises, shuttles sugar into your cells, and stores the rest as fat. Over time, your body becomes brilliant at burning sugar and lazy at reaching for stored fat reserves. So the moment you start fasting, your body doesn't calmly switch to burning fat. Instead, it panics slightly and tries to protect the fuel system it already knows. It burns leftover glycogen first, raises hunger signals, and quietly begs you to eat again soon. This is the exact moment most people misread as failure, weakness, or proof fasting doesn't work for them. In reality, that fog, that fatigue, that irritability is not failure at all. It's your biology adjusting to a completely different way of running. Think of it like a hybrid car forced to switch from gasoline to electric power suddenly. The system doesn't glide instantly. It needs time to recalibrate its entire internal wiring. That shift from burning sugar to burning fat has a name: metabolic flexibility. And it's a skill. It is not a switch you flip. It's a capability your body slowly rebuilds through repetition. If you've spent years with high insulin, extra stored fat, or constant stress, this takes longer. That doesn't mean you're broken, undisciplined, or somehow different from people who adapt faster. It simply means your starting point required more patience than someone else's starting point did. But because most success stories online are polished, edited, and stripped of struggle, expectations become dangerously unrealistic fast. When your slow human progress collides with someone else's cropped highlight reel, disappointment creeps in quickly. Disappointment quietly becomes self-doubt, and self-doubt is exactly what convinces people to quit fasting completely. This isn't proof fasting doesn't work, it's proof you were taught the wrong timeline. Fasting isn't a magic trick. It's a slow, structured signal that retrains how your body manages energy. And once you understand that truth, everything about the process suddenly feels different, more forgiving, more human. There's also a myth that fasting instantly makes you disciplined, stronger, more in control of yourself. But neuroscience tells a much messier, far more honest story about what's really happening. Early fasting isn't a triumph of willpower. It's a quiet negotiation between old habits and new intentions. Your brain learned over years that glucose arrives reliably, quickly, and constantly throughout every single day. To your brain, glucose isn't just fuel. It represents safety, stability, and the absence of danger. So the moment glucose availability drops, your brain doesn't calmly interpret this as strategy. It interprets the drop as instability, and its first instinct is resistance, not calm cooperation. That resistance sounds like familiar thoughts. Just one small snack surely won't hurt anything today. Or maybe I'm too stressed right now. I'll simply start fasting again tomorrow instead. These thoughts aren't weakness. They aren't proof you lack discipline or self-control. They're survival circuits gently pulling you back toward what feels immediately safe and familiar. Willpower itself isn't some infinite tank you draw from whenever you choose. It behaves more like a muscle, and muscles fatigue quickly under constant, layered pressure. When you're managing new eating windows, hunger signals, work stress, and emotions simultaneously, willpower drains fast.
Expecting fasting to instantly build unlimited willpower is not realistic. It's simply not how biology functions. In fact, early fasting often exposes the limits of willpower instead of expanding it. This is why so many beginners turn inward and quietly criticize themselves for normal struggle. Constant thoughts about food, persistent cravings, sudden fatigue, these get mislabeled as personal failure immediately. In truth, they're simply signs your brain is undergoing serious metabolic reorganization behind the scenes. Your brain needs real time to learn that skipping meals doesn't equal actual danger. Until that lesson gets encoded deeply, hunger signals will stay loud and persistent. Here's the paradox almost nobody explains clearly. Real willpower isn't built through chaotic force. It's built slowly, through consistency, patience, and stability repeated over meaningful stretches of time. When fasting is practiced with preparation and understanding, your brain's internal alarm gradually quiets down. Cravings lose their urgency. Hunger becomes simple information instead of an emergency demanding immediate action. At that point, willpower stops fighting every single impulse constantly and becomes quiet, sustainable, almost effortless. Fasting doesn't hand you instant discipline. It reveals how deeply food has regulated your stress and emotions. Once you see fasting as nervous system training instead of a moral test, self-judgment naturally starts fading away. And that shift is exactly what allows genuine, lasting willpower to finally emerge on its own. Now let's talk about the single sensation that causes most people to quit fasting entirely: hunger. Not because hunger itself is unbearable, but because we've misunderstood what hunger actually means since childhood. We were taught hunger signals danger, low blood sugar, an emergency your body urgently needs solved immediately. Modern science tells a completely different story, especially in the early days of intermittent fasting. Hunger isn't your enemy here. It's simply a signal your body is switching fuel sources. Picture your body as a house powered by two separate systems, gas and electricity together. You've run on gas your entire life, quick, convenient, and always immediately available whenever needed. In biological terms, that gas is glucose, delivered reliably through regular, frequent meals throughout your day. During fasting, you essentially shut off that gas valve, forcing your body toward electricity instead. Electricity here means burning stored fat for fuel, but this switch doesn't happen instantly. First, your body must deplete glycogen stores held quietly in your liver and muscle tissue. In that in-between stage, when gas is gone but electricity isn't fully online, hunger shows up. It's not a failure signal here, it's simply a transition alert your body is sending. Biologically, hunger is driven largely by a hormone called ghrelin, tied closely to your habitual eating routine. If you always eat breakfast at 8, ghrelin shows up right on cue expecting food. This isn't a real energy emergency, it's simply habit speaking loudly through hormonal signaling patterns. And here's the surprising part almost nobody tells you clearly about hunger waves. If you ignore that hunger wave completely, ghrelin actually fades away entirely on its own. Hunger fades not because you finally ate, but because your brain adjusts to this new schedule. It essentially says, okay, we're apparently doing things differently starting today, and adapts accordingly. But if you panic and eat immediately every single time, you never let adaptation happen. Your system stays locked permanently in glucose mode, and fat-burning capability never fully activates or engages.
Interestingly, studies show ghrelin rises and falls in pulses, not one steady, relentless climb. This means if you push through just 15 or 20 minutes of intense hunger, it passes. After 3 or 4 consistent days, your brain completely rewires its internal hunger clock entirely. In other words, hunger marks the threshold of adaptation, not a trap designed to punish you. It's a doorway, and the moment you stop fearing it, cooperation with your body begins. That's precisely why people who push through week 1 often report feeling sharper and calmer, not because they became superhuman overnight, but because their internal operating system simply got updated properly. One of the most dangerous misconceptions about fasting is believing that simply skipping food alone is enough. People assume fasting works like a single switch: skip meals, burn fat, magically balance every hormone instantly. But your body isn't a simplified device responding to one isolated input alone. It's a complex system where sleep, hydration, minerals, mood, and food quality all matter equally. Fasting doesn't operate in isolation. It amplifies whatever lifestyle you're already quietly living daily. For better or worse, take sleep as one clear, powerful example of this amplification. Sleep less than 6 hours nightly, and your body responds by raising cortisol, your stress hormone. Cortisol increases blood sugar fluctuations, intensifies hunger signals, and makes sugar cravings feel almost impossible to resist. Even while fasting perfectly, your exhausted brain sounds an alarm demanding glucose immediately, right now. That hunger you feel isn't simple discomfort, it's a stress response amplified by exhaustion. Worse, sleep deprivation reduces leptin, your fullness hormone, while simultaneously increasing ghrelin, your hunger hormone. So you eat more during your eating window and somehow still never feel truly satisfied. This entire frustrating cycle often starts with one simple overlooked issue: staying up too late. Now consider hydration and electrolytes, minerals your body loses steadily throughout every single fasting window. When fasting, you skip more than calories. You also skip sodium, potassium, and magnesium completely. Without replacing these minerals, headaches, dizziness, fatigue, and irritability appear surprisingly fast and intensely. Many mistake these symptoms as fasting side effects when they're actually simple dehydration and mineral depletion. Then there's your eating window itself, and what you choose to break your fast with matters enormously. Some fast 16 hours only to break it with instant noodles, pastries, or ultra-processed food. The result is a glucose spike, an insulin surge, and an inevitable crash shortly afterward. The next day, you wake up starving, foggy, and sluggish, not because fasting failed you, it's because of exactly what you ate the evening before, undoing your entire day's effort. Fasting has no magical power to fix chronically bad habits sitting underneath everything else. If your life stays constantly stressed, poorly slept, nutrient-poor, and dehydrated, fasting won't rescue you. It will instead magnify every single weakness you already carry, making problems more visible, not smaller. But here's the beautiful, hopeful part almost nobody frames positively enough about this process. Fasting acts like a biological magnifying glass, revealing what your body has whispered quietly for years. It forces honest questions. Am I truly sleeping enough? Am I hydrated? Am I nourishing myself properly? When fasting pairs with genuinely healthy habits, consistent sleep, real food, stable rhythm, your body responds brilliantly. But treat fasting like a magic wand fixing chaos alone, and disappointment arrives quickly and painfully. Fasting isn't a savior here, it's simply an honest mirror reflecting your current lifestyle back clearly.
It won't erase old wounds, but it will show them clearly enough to finally heal. One major reason people quit fasting early is comparing their timeline directly against someone else's results. My friend fasted 3 days and already feels lighter, meanwhile I feel exhausted and somehow heavier. So people conclude fasting simply doesn't work for their unique body or unique situation. But fat adaptation is a deeply individual process shaped by years of personal biological history beforehand. No two people begin fasting from the exact same biological starting line or baseline. Some start with chronically high insulin, years of stored visceral fat, or constant unmanaged stress. These factors slow the metabolic shift from burning glucose toward burning fat as primary fuel. Here's the simplified version. To burn fat, your body must switch fuels from glucose to ketones. But if insulin stays high from stress, excess carbs, or poor sleep, fat remains biologically locked. Even while fasting diligently, your body simply cannot access those stored fat reserves efficiently yet. What happens instead is a temporary low energy zone, tired, foggy, and frustratingly unfocused for a while. This doesn't mean fasting isn't working, it simply means your body needs more relearning time. You wouldn't expect to master swimming after one single lesson in the pool. Why then expect your entire metabolism to reset completely overnight after one fasting attempt? On top of that, gender, age, hormonal cycles, activity level, and muscle mass all influence pacing. Someone young, well-rested, and physically active enters fat-burning mode noticeably faster than someone chronically exhausted. It's not about who's better, it's simply about different biological starting points entering the exact same process. Many mistakenly assume faster automatically means better, and slower automatically means failure or inadequacy. But in biology, slow, steady adaptation frequently produces far more sustainable, lasting results than rapid, chaotic ones. Fasting isn't a race against anyone else. It's a long, personal metabolic reset unfolding gradually. So if week 1 brings no magical transformation, don't panic or assume something's fundamentally wrong. What you're experiencing might not be failure at all, but proof of proper adaptation. Your body is adapting exactly as needed, simply on your own timeline, not someone else's schedule. And that's precisely why fasting should never become a silent comparison contest against strangers online. It's not about keeping up, it's about tuning into your own biology and signals carefully. There's a subtle kind of hunger that even experienced fasters frequently mistake for genuine physical hunger. It feels like your body urgently needs energy, but the real trigger is purely emotional instead. This is emotional hunger, a craving originating from your brain's desire for comfort, not fuel. When you feel stressed, bored, lonely, or anxious, your brain activates its reward system immediately. Since dopamine surges after eating sugar, salt, or fat, your brain learns one simple shortcut: eating equals feeling better. So you don't need real hunger, just emotional discomfort seeking quick relief. Your brain simulates hunger convincingly, creating genuine feeling cravings even when your body has plenty of fuel. Fasting exposes this hidden pattern more clearly than almost anything else you'll experience day to day. Because when you stop eating by the clock, that old emotional eating cycle gets suddenly interrupted completely. Every emotion you once quietly silenced with food suddenly has nowhere familiar left to go. The result feels like hunger, but it's really anxiety searching desperately for its favorite familiar hiding place. This is exactly why beginners blame themselves harshly, questioning their own willpower and personal strength constantly.
But you're not weak here. You're simply confronting a deeply conditioned emotional pattern built over years. Maybe you've eaten when tired, eaten when sad, or eaten simply to fill uncomfortable silence. Over time, you weren't just eating for fuel, you were eating to regulate difficult emotions. Fasting doesn't erase that old habit instantly, it simply brings it fully into clear view. Neuroscience confirms emotional hunger activates the same brain regions as genuine physical hunger does. That means you truly feel hungry, but the underlying cause is psychological discomfort, not real energy deficit. Overcoming emotional hunger isn't about toughing it out through sheer force or gritted teeth. It begins with honestly naming what you're actually feeling underneath that sudden, urgent craving sensation. Ask yourself clearly, am I truly hungry right now, or simply anxious about something else entirely? The moment you start observing this way, something genuinely powerful and unexpected happens almost immediately. Emotional hunger often dissolves completely without needing any food at all to resolve it, because naming the feeling rewires your brain to stop confusing emotions with actual physical fuel needs. Fasting becomes more than a dietary strategy here. It becomes a tool for emotional clarity. Nothing sabotages fasting faster than becoming obsessed with achieving rapid, dramatic weight loss immediately. Many treat fasting like a crash weapon for instant fat burning, instead of gradual adaptation. When the only goal is speed, your entire approach and lifestyle quietly becomes distorted and unsustainable. Your eating window shrinks further. 16/8 becomes 24, then one meal daily, then extended fasts. But your body isn't a machine interpreting faster as automatically better or more effective overall. Push too hard and it activates survival mode, slowing metabolism and hoarding stored energy protectively. You wonder why you're not losing weight despite fasting harder and pushing yourself even further daily. It's because your body is actively protecting you from what feels like sudden, unpredictable starvation. Worse, obsessing over the scale often means ignoring meal quality entirely during your actual eating window.
You eat less, but you eat poorly, skipping protein, healthy fats, and essential vegetables completely. What follows is hormonal chaos. Leptin drops, ghrelin rises, and blood sugar crashes become frustratingly common. Your mood tanks, willpower fades, and the quiet desire to quit fasting altogether creeps in steadily. To compensate, people overtrain, adding more cardio and heavier lifting on an already depleted body. But your body is now in conservation mode, and intense training on empty leads to burnout. Here's the paradox nobody warns you about clearly. Rushing actually slows your results significantly overall. Your body doesn't release fat under pressure. It releases fat only when it finally feels safe. Fasting starts working long before the scale actually moves, but obsessing over numbers hides real progress. Clearer thinking signals rising ketones, better digestion signals gut repair, and fewer cravings signal hormonal balance returning. These aren't minor side effects, they're genuine milestones proving your body is quietly cooperating throughout. Fasting is fundamentally about rebuilding trust between you and your own body over meaningful time. Start with pressure and unrealistic deadlines, and your body retreats further into fear and protection. Lead instead with patience and biological respect, and it reveals strength you never realized you had. So don't just watch the scale obsessively. Watch recovery signals like energy, clarity, and mood instead. Choosing the perfect fasting window becomes another major source of unnecessary stress for most complete beginners. 16-8, 18-6, 24? Is one meal daily somehow the secret magic ratio everyone's been missing?
Then come dramatic stories online. I lost 11 pounds in 2 weeks doing extended fasting daily. It's tempting, and suddenly you start doubting yourself and your own personal fasting approach entirely. Am I doing this wrong? Is 16-8 simply too easy? Why am I crashing at 14 hours? Here's the trap almost everyone falls into, turning fasting windows into competitive status symbols unnecessarily. Let's be completely clear. These windows are simply time structures, not rigid rules carved permanently. They're not willpower trophies, not success rankings, and definitely not measures of your personal discipline level. Your body doesn't read clocks. It runs entirely on biological rhythm and individual metabolic flexibility instead. Fasting works best when it aligns with where your body currently stands, not someone else's journey. Metabolic flexibility, your body's ability to switch fuels smoothly, is a trainable skill, developing gradually. Like any skill, it develops at completely different paces depending entirely on your unique starting point. If you carry high insulin, blood sugar issues, or chronic stress, pushing into 20-hour fasts backfires. It won't burn fat faster, it will simply leave you foggy, irritable, and deeply frustrated instead. The smarter move is starting small, 12-12, then 14-10, then gradually building towards 16-8 steadily. Flexibility matters daily, too. Feeling exhausted and stressed today? Try a shorter window without guilt attached. Well-rested tomorrow? Extend comfortably to 18-6 if your body genuinely feels ready for that stretch. Fasting doesn't need to be perfect every single day, just sustainable across weeks and months. What matters isn't the specific number you choose, it's understanding exactly where you stand metabolically today. Hunger arriving too early signals unstable glucose regulation. Shakiness signals possible electrolyte or sleep issues emerging. These are data points guiding your next decision, not personal failures deserving harsh self-criticism or judgment. Once you stop treating fasting windows as fixed dogma, you start using them as flexible tools. One of the most ironic traps beginners fall into is developing genuine fear around eating itself. After successful early fasting days, many worry that eating enough will somehow undo all their progress. They start believing narrower windows and eating less always produces faster, more impressive fat loss results. This is exactly where things quietly go wrong for otherwise well-intentioned, disciplined people trying their best. Eating too little during your window doesn't accelerate fat burning, it actually disrupts the entire process. When you undereat, especially skipping protein and healthy fats, your body lowers leptin, your satiety hormone.
This makes feeling satisfied genuinely harder while simultaneously increasing ghrelin and raising cortisol, your primary stress hormone. This increases cravings, worsens anxiety, and disrupts sleep quality, creating an exhausting, self-defeating vicious cycle. You fast, undereat, hormones destabilize, intense cravings hit, you feel like a failure, restrict further. Here's the essential point almost nobody emphasizes clearly enough. Fasting was never designed to minimize eating. It's meant to help you eat at the right time, more intentionally and more nourishingly. When you properly nourish yourself during your eating window, you send your body a completely different message. This shift creates real biological change. Your nervous system relaxes, satiety hormones normalize, cravings quietly fade. Many fear overeating erases fasting's benefits entirely, but quality matters far more than raw calorie counting. A meal rich in vegetables, protein, and healthy fats stabilizes blood sugar for hours afterward. Overly restrictive fasting, combined with poor quality meals, actually moves you backward, not forward toward your goals.